Warframe is an easy game. Absolutely incendiary way to start a YouTube video, I know, but just hear me out, okay? I could talk a bunch about difficulty and what constitutes a challenging gameplay experience, but that would be a video in and of itself. So let's just leave it at this. Warframe is a game that at a surface level presents the typical gamer with several moment-to-moment problems. Different types of special enemies, stage hazards, alert levels, etc. As a new player, you're made to think much more about these factors, but thanks to Warframe's modding and upgrading progression, as you get further and further into the game, you have to care about those problems less and less until you're just blazing through every mission, AoE nuking level 200 enemies into oblivion. Contrast that with something like Halo. Master Chief can't just upgrade his assault rifle if the hunter encounters bodying him, he's gotta, use his noggin. And that is the concept I want to try and explore with this challenge run. By peeling away all but the barest minimum of Warframe's power progression, will I find some sort of vaunted hidden gem space ninja experience where the margins between survival and defeat are razor thin, and using every trick available to me isn't just possible but necessary to progress? I don't know. Maybe? Warframe challenge runs are nothing new. People have been doing them since forever ago. Stug only, no jumps, locked at MR0. But my interest is in something a bit more universal. Warframe mods are the biggest factor in growing your power, so what would a playthrough without these crucial upgrades look like? Well, it would look something like this video where I spent 2 hours shooting a heavy gunner with an unmodded Lado, and since I would rather forego all my mortal possessions and become an ascetic monk than repeat that process, I decided to give myself one bit of leeway. Mods are allowed, but everything I have equipped must be unranked. A pretty simple and straightforward restriction that will start to absolutely sting as we get further into the game. To make the reduced power level of this run actually stick though, I figured we should also tack on a couple extra restrictions. 1, I have to be playing on solo all the time. 2, I'm not allowed to trade anything with other players, and 3, I can't purchase anything that would aid my gameplay with platinum. And with that, the challenge rules are locked in, and a fresh-faced account was born, given an appropriately grandiose and not at all confusing name, JohnEndo. His goal? To beat Warframe. What does that mean? Well, naturally, we gotta make it to 1999 and clear all current content and quests, and the star chart, but I think once that's done, there is a further goal I want to achieve. After all, the biggest challenge in Warframe isn't the main story. It's the optional challenges that hit the hardest. Is that possible? Find out, I guess. But we're a long way from super bosses. Right past the first login screen, our first choice is already upon us. Which Warframe to pick? There are genuine reasons to pick every one of the starters for this run. Mag has armor strip and CC, Volt has his shield, capacitance, and solid damage through the star chart with his passive. But I ended up settling on Excalibur because of a couple reasons. Excalibur's passive gives both attack speed and damage to any swords he's using, which comes in handy when all I've got is an unranked pressure point and Fury. Radial Blind gives free finishers, and Chromatic Blade, when I can get it, is really good. We also get given a choice of starting weapons. Well, not really much of a choice, more like a series of binary right and wrongs. We take the Skana over Bow because of Excalibur's passive, and the Paris's incredibly high charged damage, even while unmodded, blows the Braden out of the water. As for the Kunai versus Lado, I really figure it makes no difference, save for the fact that you can use the Lado to craft a Bolto when you're done with it. Vor's Prize, with its simplified missions and tile sets, is the exact opposite of a challenge for anyone who's played Warframe before, but it did at least give me some insights into how various mission types might play out later into this challenge run. Missions like Spy and Sabotage missions will be the easiest since they don't require any combat, while Extermination and Capture missions will likely just take time. Excavation missions will also just take time, since even if I can't stop enemies from blowing up my excavators, I can just keep calling new ones until I get enough cryotic, and I don't even want to think about Disruption missions right now. But yeah, like I said, light work, no reaction. It is really funny though that Vor said this.
My decrepit heart is pounding. This one is stronger than the rest.
Because that is going to become false very, very soon. Next up is the Teacher, the new and very shiny quest that teaches us equipping and upgrading mods. Everything goes pretty smoothly, kidnapping and all, until the Lotus tells me I require maximum power to go and rescue Teshin from 3 level 10 enemies. This is where the game tries to tell you that upgrading mods with Endo is necessary to increase your power, but the only lesson JohnEndo learns is that in order to clear this quest step, I can just upgrade a mod I never intended to use and then reduce it to atoms and carry on. After saving Tesh and then beating the shit out of him, we're unleashed on the system at large, where I immediately make a couple important equipment decisions. The Strun shotgun has no right, being as good as it is and only costing credits, so that's immediately going into my inventory. I also, needed to head to Venus to progress my quests, which required upgrading yet another mod. You get an unranked Dreamer's Bond mod for completing the teacher, but then are immediately required to upgrade it to unlock the Taxon blueprint and open one of the challenges to unlock the Venus Junction. This was fine, as I expected to be able to just level up Dreamer's Bond and then obliterate it, same as before, but DE, for some reason, made it so this one specific mod cannot be dissolved or sold. So now I have this landmine sitting in my inventory reminding me of my failures. But I guess I can bear it, since in exchange, I got a whole new piece of equipment to never use, the Taxon. Overall, there are definitely better Sentinels to get, but anything that can slot an unranked vacuum mod is good enough for me. Now that the beast is officially unleashed from Tutorial Island, I wanted to talk a bit about my first impressions of difficulty. Most notably that things aren't too bad right now, really. I found levels 1 through 20 are basically the same thing in terms of enemy durability and damage. Shields present a unique challenge since they prevent instances of heavy damage one-shotting enemies, but that can be remedied by modding for magnetic or just shooting headshots. One interesting technique I've already found myself using that I never had to before is the air kick. While sliding midair, colliding with an enemy will deal a small amount of damage, but most importantly, immediately ground them, opening them up to finisher attacks. At low levels, it's pretty funny kicking dudes in the head so hard they die instantly. I have a feeling this is some tech that could come in pretty handy in the future. Something that's going to permeate a lot of my journey through the star chart is going to be trying to get my mastery rank up as much as possible, since getting powerful weapons will be our biggest ace in the hole against challenges further down the road. The number to shoot for is 14, as that's where you get access to basically everything that's not lich weapons, which don't really have an MR requirement anyway. This should be really easy to achieve with how little mastery score the lower levels take, but we may have to do some power leveling down the line. The first side quest I elected to get out of the way was Howl of the Kubrow, which would unsurprisingly reward me with a Kubrow. I got lucky enough to hatch a Hurus Kubrow, the stealth variation, and good god, it's the biggest Kubrow I've ever seen. Hurus Kubrows can cloak both you and themselves until your next attack, which actually doesn't proc on abilities like Slash Dash, making this a pretty useful tool. They can also hard CC a single enemy and drag them around. Less useful, but funny. I named this big boy 0 because that will be the total amount of endo he is allowed to consume. Quick aside here just to say that unranked scavenge might be the funniest mod of all time, because now instead of your pet basically being guaranteed to open locked lockers, I'm just sitting here watching poor 0 slam his giant stubby paws against locker after locker, letting out an embarrassed whine every time he renders the contents inaccessible. It's really easy at the start of a Warframe playthrough to fall into a habit of looting every single crate and locker in a level, but when you consider that enemies have the same drop tables, there's really not much of a point, unless it's a rare resource container or you're specifically focus farming something. Or if you see some delicious moss. It's gonna take a while. Hold on. Moss. 7 out of 10. Knock knock. It's the Mastery Rank 1 test. Shoot 3 dudes with your primary weapon. Okay, thanks, bye. Vox Solaris is in fact a quest that I did. Didn't really get much out of it. I'll probably come back to Fortuna sometime in the future, since amps and kit guns are both going to be things that probably are going to help us out a lot at higher levels. This is where day 1 of this challenge came to an end. I picked things up again a week later and immediately started the Arcling quest. Well, that's a lie. First I got griefed by my chat, who used the gifting system to taunt me with 2000 endo, but after that, I hit my MR2 test, and then started the Arcling quest, which confirmed my suspicions about how I'll probably start to have trouble with excavation missions in the future, but ultimately proved no challenge to an Apex gamer like myself. Another piece of equipment to never mod out acquired. Coincidentally, there was also an alert happening around this time that let me snag 30 universal medallions for absolutely free. Well, not exactly free. I had to do my first interception mission to cop it, which was only slightly terrifying. I found that holding control of at least 2 points at all times before going to grab more worked great, and at least it does now while I'm still able to reasonably damage enemies. It was about this point where I unlocked my first level of Nightwave, which gives you a whopping 150 cred, which goes an incredibly long way when you're not just spending it on Auric and catalysts and reactors. I used this stipend to get all of Vauban's blueprints as well as some mods for the Magnus, Gorgon, and Xylock, which might end up being good in the future, but I'll save talking about them in detail to when/if I actually end up using them. The next quest I chose to tackle was Man of Few Words. One, because I was feeling down and needed to see Baby Girl's face, and second, because I figured having some easily accessible cleanse specters would be a good first thing to throw at any problems I couldn't handle on my own. The missions involved followed the previous trend of being incredibly doable, until the last one, a 10-minute survival mission where enemy levels started to climb into the mid-20s? But that wasn't the problem. Remember the Grustag 3? I do, and I forgot they spawned in these missions. They weren't anything that couldn't be solved with Exalted Blade spam, but they were really making me feel that unmodded health and shields. But hey, here's hoping that's the last we'll see of those guys for this playthrough. Lastly for the day, I deigned to try and beat Heart of Deimos, which, boy howdy, I expected the enemies here to slap, and even still, I was surprised. All that toxin damage is straight up lethal to fresh 10-0. I persevered though, and even got to ride around in an unmodded Necromech as a reward. Boy, it would be really funny if I ended up building one of these things in the future to fight field bosses and... Aw, damn it. But with Heart of Deimos out of the way, my path through several junctions was now open, and in celebration, one of my chatters donated the supplies to paint myself endo-colored. I think that in regards to gifts, I can take cosmetic stuff like these, but just a warning, if any of y'all send me anything that can be used for gameplay, it is absolutely getting turned into credits. One quick fashion pit stop later, and that's everything. For now, at least. This first part contained a lot of easy missions and prep work for what'll come after, but I mean, that's kind of to be expected. I imagine we'll start to run into some real roadblocks next time. So that's everything that has happened. Let's talk about what will happen next, ergo, future plans. Ideally, I hope to start building Rhino, Vauban, and Kome, as they all offer something that can help an Endoless run while being pretty easily accessible. Rhino has his iron skin, Kome her decrees, and Vauban just has pure damage and CC. I also think the Higasa and Amanata could be good weapons to build early on, with Higasa's Umbrella Shield and Amanata's stat increases. God, I am going to be farming Fate Pearls for the next 10 years of my life! I'm also going to need to focus farm some Void Relics, not because I hope to unlock any Prime equipment, mind you, I just need to pass the Phobos Junction. I'll also need to start my own clan and build my own dojo. There's some weapons that might be useful in research, but there are also some gadgets like stims I want to try using to see if they can help up my performance. Elemental damage mods are also a big priority, as to have my best chances against enemies going forward, I'll probably have to start playing Pokemon with enemy type weaknesses. I'm also coming up on MR3, where I can pick a syndicate to join. My plan for now is Steel Meridian, as they'll have access to augments for both Excalibur and Rhino. They're also allied with Red Veil, who can provide a certain doomsday option, should I find myself struggling too hard. And yeah, that's all for now. So far, I've really been enjoying this run, since even if nothing else, it's given me the chance to re-experience the start of Warframe again, something I haven't done since, oh yeah, 5 years ago. Hey, don't go back and watch that video, it's there exclusively for archival purposes. Thanks to everyone who showed up to the live broadcast of episode 1. You made it much more interesting of an experience than just running through the paces on autopilot. If you're watching this video the day it came out, chances are I'm still live, continuing this run, so like, get over here and check it out, you know? Twitch TV/Zachmo_. Alright, that's all I got. Bye everybody.